Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and this video is my December orchids in bloom. And welcome to my December orchids in bloom video. At the moment I have 8 orchids in bloom and 9 orchids in bloom actually, and a number that are just kind of petering out, which I won't bother to show you. So the majority of them are here on this table, and I guess the best thing is to just get stuck right in there. I want to say first that I had expected a bigger December orchids in bloom video, but what with my Cattleya contracting a virus, or what seems to be a virus, and with another specimen that just hasn't set flowers yet, and we're going to have to wait longer for that, the orchids in bloom is lesser than I expected, but I hope you'll enjoy having a look all the same. And just before I dive into this conglomeration here on the table, I can't help but be distracted by the glorious spicy scent that's coming from over here in the room. And I'm just going to bring you briefly over here to show you my Cattleya orchid, the King of Taiwan, which I am enjoying to the full. And whatever is the matter with this orchid, I can tell you that I am making the most of it and really enjoying it. Now these 2 flowers are still looking fantastic. These 2 aren't too bad, and the 5th one there has gone really, but the others are lasting a long time, and there's no browning or curling up here, no premature nodding out or bowing out by the orchid. And since the last video, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who took the time to tell me what they thought might be wrong with my orchid. I appreciate it a lot. Since the last video, I've come to the conclusion that what might be ailing my orchid is the fact that it had a bleach bath when it was in bud. So I mentioned that it had some mealybugs, and I felt I really had to address that even though the plant was in bud, and I gave it a bleach bath, as you do. And who knows, perhaps these white markings are to do with that bleach. In any case, I'm not going to throw it away. It's going to live in an isolated room, and we'll see how it does for next year. And here we are again, back at the arrangement of the majority of my orchids in bloom. And the first one I really want to talk about, one that I'm exceedingly excited about and absolutely over the moon about, is this amazing Dendrobium. It's a sanderae Dendrobium, and look at the size of this absolutely enormous flower. Isn't it amazing? If we look at the back as well, you can see the shape. There's a kind of spur thing going on there at the back. Really, really attractive. Now this is a relatively new plant. I bought it at the orchid show in Dresden. Actually, it was brought to me at the orchid show in Dresden, and it had some kind of mealy on it at one stage, but I addressed it, and this is how it rewarded me. Isn't it just fabulous? Now, I'm not really a big Dendrobium fan, but that is knock your socks off. Now, as we all know, the grouping or the family of Dendrobium orchids is absolutely enormous. I think it's possibly the biggest grouping of all orchid types. So they've been divided into various groupings within that. And this orchid belongs to the Formosae Dendrobium group. And it's identified very often as having black hairs. So either sheaths or pseudobulbs on the plant have black hairs. Not always, but often. And I think this one doesn't. Well, there's nothing immediately visible here. But anyway, it's absolutely fantastic. I have a couple of Dendrobiums so far in this group, and I'm just kind of testing the water, seeing if I can grow them successfully. And so far so good. I have another one in bud, I must tell you. Now this plant has flowered on a very, very, very long cane, but behind it is an even longer cane. This one here. And I am very hopeful that this one will also produce an enormous flower. Now this flower hasn't been around for very many days yet, so it remains to be seen how long they'll last for. So I must let you know the result of that as it pans out here at Douentza. But so far I'm very pleased with this plant and would be tentatively hopeful that the Formosae group of Dendrobiums is one that I can grow. I'm very reluctant to move away from this glorious flower because it really is fantastic. Oh, I forgot to mention there's no scent, well none that I can detect anyway, but it doesn't need to. It's fantastic, isn't it? Absolutely fantastic. Wonderful little thing. Okay, the second most exciting thing to show you here in my orchids in flower is right down at the front, and it's much smaller than this almost giant flower. So let's move down here. That red thing in the background is just a poinsettia, you know, the Christmas plant that everybody grows. And if we move down the front, we can see that this other orchid is hanging here on the cage of the Dendrobium because it's on a mount. And if we look down here, you can see its flowers. Now this is a Baptistonia, basically an Oncidium, I think. A species one called truncata, and it has drooping flowers. In fact, it makes a very elegant plant the way it is on the mount and kind of droops down like that. I think that's really quite an attractive picture. So because it's on a mount, I need to water it every other day. Every 3 or 4 days now in winter. But the flowers really are gorgeous, aren't they? Such an attractive little thing. This is the second time it's flowered for me, and yeah, really pleased with it. Definitely one that I'd recommend. So, leaving behind the Baptistonia, we move over to the first of my twinkles. And this is a sad state of affairs, really. I only have 3 spikes on my twinkle this year, and I know exactly why. The reason is that I had it very far away from the light, so the poor thing it just didn't have enough light. I've had my orchids badly arranged in the plant room, but now with new grow lights I hope they can be sorted out and I won't have this kind of problem going forward. Lovely scent all the same. And behind it we have Oncidium sotoanum, my favourite Oncidium that you saw in all its glory in the last video. And this one has 5 flower spikes this year, which are just going over now. Well, not just going over, they're a good way over now. And 5 spikes is quite a respectable count for a plant this size. But one year I actually had 13 spikes on this beauty, so it's quite a reliable doer in my home environment. And you can see that at the end of the spikes here, the flowers are beginning to brown and drop. And every morning when I come down, there's a kind of confetti of spent orchid flowers here on the kitchen floor, which is, well, it's all right. It could be worse. And over on the other side of the arrangement, we have Dendrobium Lutin Blanc, which has 3 spikes at the moment. And it's not such a glorious flowering as I had several years ago. And I'll link to that video probably at the end of this. But it's doing okay. I'm not sure if there are any more spikes coming. No, I don't think so really. We'll see. I mean, these flowers do last a long time, but it's lovely when it's actually covered in spikes, which I had before. And they're cute little things too. Look at them. Very nice. Now this is in the Laturia division of Dendrobiums. So I've got Laturia and Formosae here for the big guy. And generally, you know, I try and steer clear of the Dendrobiums that need winter rest. And this is the last orchid I want to show you today, and it's a Phalaenopsis pallens, so species Phalaenopsis that I've had, I'm not quite sure how long now, but it has flowered before, and this time it's rewarded me with two pretty flowers. We had a look at this, I think, in the last video I made, and this, the earliest, the newest flower, had very much a pink beard at that point in time, but it's closed up a little bit. But this is a very pretty little Phalaenopsis, no scent, but it's a lovely little thing to have in a collection because it doesn't take up much space as well. And as long as you keep it in a nice warm room with decent light, it can just tick over there in the background and then reward you with a flower every now and again. And as the plant gets a bit bigger, I'm reliably informed it will produce more spikes and therefore more flowers. But see how pretty it is. And actually, the markings on it, the brown markings on it, are quite similar, I think, to the Baptistonia. Well, a little bit the same. So that's Phalaenopsis pallens. And those are my orchids in bloom in December. So this is probably going to be the last video I make before Christmas. If you're celebrating, I wish you a happy Christmas. And I guess it remains for me just to remind you about the merchandise store that I have, and you should see ads for that popping up under the videos on YouTube. It's in conjunction with YouTube. So at the end of this video, I'll just put in a couple of stills of some of the designs I've made, which you might want to treat yourself with. And if you bought some of these items, like t-shirts and hoodies so far, I'd love to see a photograph, a selfie of you with them, and we can put it up on social media. Thanks very much to everybody, and I suppose I just want to say a great big thank you to everybody who supported the channel over the course of the year. All new subscribers, all old and loyal subscribers. It's come a long way. Let's just say that. And yeah, thank you. Thanks to everybody, and happy Christmas. Bye.